Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about one of the most badass queens in history, Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, the woman who basically told the entire world, watch me do this my way. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to 1533, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So congratulations. You just woke up in Tudor England. Well, sort of. Good news? You're a princess. Bad news? Your dad is Henry VIII, and he's basically the 16th century version of that guy who changes his mind about everything, constantly. You're lying in a cradle at Greenwich Palace, and your name is Elizabeth, named after both your grandmothers, which seemed like a safe choice at the time. Your mother is Anne Boleyn, and right now she's pretty much on top of the world. She just gave birth to what everyone hoped would be a prince. But, well, you came out a girl instead. Oops. Your father is, how do I put this gently, disappointed, like massively disappointed. He just broke with the entire Catholic Church to marry your mum, caused a religious revolution, made enemies across Europe, all to get a male heir, and instead he got you. Don't take it personally though, it's not really about you, it's about him and his weird obsession with having a son. The palace around you smells like, well, a lot of things. Wood smoke from the massive fireplaces, because September in England is already getting chilly. The musky scent of tapestries that have absorbed decades of smoke and dampness. Rushes scattered on the floor that try to mask the less pleasant odours, but don't quite succeed. You can hear the Thames outside, water lapping against the stone walls of the palace, people shouting from boats, the clip-clop of horses on cobblestone courtyards. Your world is made of stone and wood and fabric, heavy, solid, but also kind of precarious. Because here's the thing about being born in 1533, your status can change overnight, and it does. You're 2 years old when everything falls apart. 2 years and 8 months to be exact. Old enough to walk, old enough to babble and play, old enough to recognize faces, but not old enough to understand why everyone around you suddenly seems scared. Your mother has been arrested. Now, you don't understand any of this yet. You just know that Mum isn't coming to see you anymore. The people who take care of you are whispering a lot. They keep looking at you with these worried expressions, like they're not sure what's going to happen to you. And honestly, they're right to be worried. Your father has decided that your mother is guilty of adultery, treason, basically everything terrible you can imagine. The charges are, well, let's just say most historians think they were completely made up, but your dad wants to marry wife number 3, Jane Seymour, and your mum is in the way. So on May 19th, 1536, your mother is beheaded at the Tower of London. You wake up that morning a legitimate princess. You go to sleep that night as a bastard. Because here's how it works in Henry's mind. If your mother was guilty of adultery, then maybe you're not even his daughter. And if their marriage was invalid, which he's now saying it was, then you were never legitimate in the first place. Poof. Just like that. Your place in the royal succession vanishes. Your governess, Margaret Bryan, doesn't really know what to do with you. She writes to the Royal Council asking for guidance about, well, everything. What should you wear? Should she still treat you like a princess? Are you still a princess? Nobody has good answers. Your household gets smaller, less fancy, your allowance gets cut, some of your servants are dismissed, the fine clothes and toys slow to a trickle. You're moved from Greenwich to Hatfield House in Hertfordshire, which is lovely, don't get me wrong, but it's basically royal exile for toddlers. And here's the wild part, you adapt, because you're 2 years old and 2-year-olds are surprisingly resilient. You don't remember being a legitimate princess anyway, so this becomes your normal. Your new guardian is your half-sister Mary, who's 17 years older than you and complicated. Mary is your father's daughter from his first marriage to Catherine of Aragon. She's also technically illegitimate now, thanks to your dad's marriage gymnastics. So you two illegitimate princesses are stuck together. Mary is, how do I put this, intense. She's deeply Catholic in a country that's becoming Protestant. She's bitter about what happened to her mother, and she's not exactly thrilled about you, since your birth kinda ruined her life too. But she does her duty, takes care of you, makes sure you're fed and clothed and educated. The house at Hatfield is quieter than the palace. Red brick walls, diamond-paned windows that let in soft filtered light, gardens where you can actually run around and play without worrying about protocol. Your world gets smaller, but also more intimate. You learn to read early, like really early. Your governess, a woman named Catherine Champinon, but everyone calls her Cat Ashley, discovers that you're basically a sponge for learning. She starts teaching you languages, French, Latin, Italian. You pick them up like other kids pick up nursery rhymes. By the time you're 4, you're reading. By 6, you're reading Latin. Your stepmother, Catherine Parr, wife number 6, the one who actually survives your father, takes an interest in your education. She's learned and religious and believes girls should be educated just like boys, which is unusual for the time. Catherine arranges for you to have proper tutors, real scholars, the same ones teaching your little brother Edward, who was born when you were 4. Edward is the legitimate male heir your father always wanted, the golden boy, the prince. But here's the thing. You and Edward become close, really close. You're both clever, both love learning, both kind of isolated from normal children your age. You study together, play together, write letters to each other in Latin because, well, why not? Edward is serious and thoughtful, pale with reddish hair like yours. He's being groomed to be king from the moment he can walk. You're being educated like a princess, even though you're officially not one. It's a weird situation, but it works. Your education becomes intense in a good way. You study with Roger Ascham, this brilliant humanist scholar who believes learning should be engaging, not just memorization. He teaches you Greek. You translate classical texts. By the age of 12, you're translating your stepmother's religious work from English into Italian, Latin, and French as a New Year's gift for your father, because that's what passes for fun in the Tudor household. Your days at Hatfield develop a rhythm, morning prayers, because everyone's very concerned about your religious education, then lessons, languages, history, mathematics, rhetoric, afternoon walks in the gardens, evening music lessons. You learn to play the virginals, a keyboard instrument. You dance, because dancing is considered essential for a lady. The rooms smell like beeswax candles and ink from your studies. In winter, there's always the scent of wood fires, oak burning in massive fireplaces. The windows rattle when the wind picks up across the Hertfordshire countryside. Your clothes are wool and linen, scratchy but warm. You're growing up during one of the most tumultuous times in English history. The country is splitting apart over religion. Monasteries are being dissolved. People are choosing sides, Protestant or Catholic, and it's not just a theological debate. People are literally dying over this stuff. Your father's church reforms aren't just about getting divorced, they're reshaping the entire country. The wealth that used to go to Rome is staying in England. The Bible is being translated into English so ordinary people can read it. It's revolutionary and dangerous. When you're 10 years old, your father does something surprising. He puts you back in the line of succession, third in line after Edward and Mary, still officially illegitimate, but acknowledged as his daughter and potential heir. It's like being given back a piece of yourself you didn't even know was missing. But here's where things get creepy. After your father dies in 1547, you go to live with Catherine Parr, your beloved stepmother. She's remarried quickly to Thomas Seymour, the brother of Jane Seymour, your father's third wife. So Thomas is kind of your step-uncle, sort of. Thomas Seymour is handsome, charming, ambitious, and completely inappropriate. He's in his late 30s, you're 14. He starts bothering you. Coming into your room early in the morning when you're barely dressed, tickling you, accidentally walking in when you're changing clothes, playing games that make you uncomfortable but that you don't really know how to stop. You're 14. He's an adult. He's in a position of authority, and you've already learned that the adults in your life can be unpredictable. Catherine catches on pretty quickly. Thank God. She's furious. Not at you, but at her new husband. She sends you away, back to your own household, for your own protection. But the damage is done. Rumours start spreading that you're pregnant with Seymour's child. You're not. But rumours in Tudor England can be as dangerous as facts. This is your first real lesson in how vulnerable you are as a woman in this world, how quickly your reputation can be destroyed, how men can take advantage of their power over you. It's a lesson you'll never forget. Thomas Seymour eventually goes too far. He tries to kidnap your little brother Edward, the king, in some harebrained scheme to gain power. He's arrested, tried, and executed for treason. You're questioned about your relationship with him, intensely questioned. You're 15 years old and you have to convince a council of men that you weren't involved in treason, that you weren't seduced, that you weren't pregnant, that you weren't plotting against your brother, the king. You handle it perfectly. You're calm, dignified. You give careful, measured answers that reveal nothing while denying everything. You show them that you're not some silly girl who can be manipulated. You're a Tudor and you're learning to think like one. Your brother Edward is king now, but he's just 9 years old when your father dies. The real power is held by a council of regents, ambitious men who are all jockeying for position. It's messy, dangerous. Everyone's plotting against everyone else. You stay out of it. Keep your head down. Focus on your studies. Live quietly at your various houses. You're learning patience, caution, how to survive in a world where being royal can get you killed just as easily as it can make you powerful. Edward is brilliant, but sickly, pale and thin and coughing too much. You visit him when you can. Write him letters in Latin and Greek that make him laugh. He's your little brother, your friend, your link to legitimacy. But you can see he's not well, and if Edward dies without children, the crown goes to Mary, your deeply Catholic, increasingly bitter half-sister Mary, and if Mary dies without children, it comes to you, the bastard princess who learned 6 languages, who survived her mother's execution and her father's rejection and Thomas Seymour's inappropriate attention, who's been quietly getting ready for something she's not even sure will happen. You fall asleep at Hatfield House on a cold winter night in 1552, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Tomorrow you'll wake up and study Greek with your tutor, practice your music, walk in the gardens, live the quiet life of a princess who might someday be queen. But tonight, you're just a young woman of 19, lying in a bed with heavy wool blankets, letting your body sink into the straw mattress, breathing slowly as the fire in your chamber burns low. You don't know yet that your brother Edward will die next year, that Mary will become queen, that you'll spend time in the Tower of London, the same tower where your mother was executed. For now, you're safe, warm, educated, prepared for whatever comes next, even if you don't know what that is yet. Sleep well, future queen. You wake up to the sound of hoofbeats, fast hoofbeats, the kind that mean urgent news. It's July 6th, 1553, and you're 20 years old now, living your quiet life at Hatfield House. But something in the air feels different today. Wrong. The messenger who arrives is sweaty, out of breath, and bearing news that changes everything. Your brother Edward is dead at 15 years old, the same age your mother was when she first caught your father's eye. But here's where it gets messy. really messy. Edward, in his final months, influenced by the Duke of Northumberland and probably not thinking clearly because he was literally dying, decided to change the succession instead of following your father's will, which named Mary as next in line, then you. He's declared his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, as his heir. Jane Grey, sweet, scholarly, Protestant Jane, who is, and this is important, married to the Duke of Northumberland's son. What a coincidence, right? Jane is probably sitting in some manor house right now having the worst day of her life, because being declared queen when you're 16 and didn't ask for it, well, that's not exactly a blessing in Tudor England. Mary, your half-sister, is not having any of this. She's 37 years old, deeply Catholic, and has been waiting her entire life to be queen. Some teenage cousin isn't going to steal that from her, so Mary does something brilliant. Instead of rushing to London and getting herself arrested, she heads to Norfolk, gathers supporters, builds an army, basically says, "I'm the rightful queen according to Henry VIII's will, and if you want to argue about it, bring soldiers." Well, you're in the worst possible position, caught between two queens. If you support Jane and Mary wins, you're dead. If you support Mary and Jane wins, you're also dead. And if you try to stay neutral, both sides will assume you're plotting against them. So you get sick, conveniently sick. Not really sick, but you take to your bed and claim you're too ill to travel, too weak to declare for anyone, just a frail young woman who couldn't possibly be involved in politics. It's brilliant, actually, playing into everyone's expectations about delicate female health. From your bed at Hatfield, which smells like lavender water and the honey-soaked cloth your servants use to cool your forehead, you listen to the news filtering in. Jane has been proclaimed queen in London. Mary is gathering forces in East Anglia. People are choosing sides. It lasts 9 days. 9 days, and then it becomes clear that the country supports Mary. She's Henry VIII's daughter, the rightful heir, and most people don't appreciate having the succession changed by a dying teenager and his ambitious advisors. Jane Grey surrenders, gets taken to the Tower of London, and Mary rides triumphantly into London with you at her side. Because that's the thing, as soon as it's clear Mary has won, you recover from your mysterious illness and ride to meet her. Show solidarity, make it clear you're supporting the rightful queen. Mary seems pleased, relieved even. For a moment, a brief, shining moment, you think maybe this could work. Maybe you and Mary can be sisters. Maybe she'll let bygones be bygones. You're so naive. The early months of Mary's reign are tense. She's determined to bring England back to Catholicism, reverse all the religious changes your father and brother made, restore the old ways, and you were raised Protestant, educated by Protestant scholars. It's not just your religion, it's your entire worldview. But you're smart. You start attending Catholic Mass. You conform. You make the right noises about wanting to learn more about the true faith. You play the part of a confused young woman who needs guidance. It tastes like ash in your mouth. The Mass is in Latin, which you understand perfectly, unlike most people. The incense burns your nose. The ritual feels foreign after years of Protestant simplicity, but you kneel when you're supposed to kneel, cross yourself at the right moments, take communion with the prescribed reverence, because you know what happens to people who don't conform. Mary wants to marry Philip of Spain, King Philip, son of Emperor Charles V, and one of the most powerful men in Europe. It's a good match politically. It'll bring England into Spain's sphere of influence and help Mary restore Catholicism. But the English people hate it. Really hate it. They don't want a foreign king, don't want to be dragged into Spain's wars, don't want England to become a Spanish satellite, and they definitely don't want to see England's independence sacrificed for Mary's religious goals. So they rebel. Thomas Wyatt, son of the poet, leads an uprising in Kent. His plan is to prevent Mary's marriage to Philip, remove Mary from the throne, and put you in her place. You know nothing about this. Nothing. You're at court, trying to stay out of trouble, when word comes that Wyatt is marching on London with your name on his banners. Your blood turns to ice water. Mary summons you. Her face is like stone, her eyes hard and suspicious. She asks if you knew about Wyatt's rebellion, if you supported it, if you encouraged it. You didn't. But that doesn't matter. In Mary's mind, in everyone's mind, you're the obvious alternative to her rule, the Protestant princess who could unite all the opposition to her policies. You deny everything, calmly, clearly, with just the right amount of hurt confusion. How could she think you would betray her? You're her loyal sister. You want nothing but to serve God and your queen. Mary doesn't believe you. On March 18th, 1554, you're arrested and taken to the Tower of London, the same tower where your mother died 18 years ago. The barge ride down the Thames is the longest journey of your life. Grey stone walls rising from the dark water. Ravens circling overhead like omens. The sound of oars cutting through the murky river. Each stroke taking you closer to the place where royal heads get separated from royal shoulders. You enter through the same gate your mother used, Traitor's Gate, they call it, the water gate where all the doomed prisoners arrive. Your hands are shaking, you can't help it, but you keep your chin up, your expression calm, because you know people are watching, judging, looking for signs of guilt or fear. You're assigned to the bell tower. Better than the dungeons, but still a prison. Stone walls thick enough to muffle screams, a narrow window that shows you a slice of sky, a bed with straw mattress and rough woolen blankets that smell like previous occupants. And you try not to think about what happened to them. The days crawl by. No one tells you anything. No formal charges. No trial date. Just waiting. Wondering if today will be the day they come for you. You wake every morning to the sound of ravens, harsh, guttural calls that echo off the stone walls. Your cell is cold, always cold, even though it's spring. The dampness seeps into your bones, your breath fogs in the morning air. You're given books to read, which is a mercy. You lose yourself in Greek texts, translations of classical works, anything to keep your mind occupied. Your meals come on wooden trenchers, thin gruel for breakfast, bread and cheese at midday, whatever scraps they can spare for the evening. But the worst part is not knowing. Are they building a case against you? Are they torturing your servants for information? Is Wyatt's rebellion spreading, or has it been crushed? The isolation is suffocating. You're used to being surrounded by people, tutors, servants, courtiers. Now it's just you, the guards, and the weight of stone walls pressing in. After 2 months of this, you're moved to Woodstock Palace, not freed, just transferred to a more comfortable prison. It's an improvement, bigger rooms, better food, the ability to walk in gardens, but you're still under guard, still suspected of treason. Your warden is Sir Henry Bedingfield, a Catholic gentleman who takes his duties seriously. He watches you constantly, reports on everything you do, everyone you talk to, every book you read. You develop a routine to keep yourself sane. Morning prayers, though you're not sure God is listening. Afternoon walks around the grounds, always with guards trailing behind. Evening reading by candlelight until your eyes burn. The seasons change around you, summer heat giving way to autumn rain. You watch leaves fall from your window, each one a day closer to, what? Release? Trial? Execution? You write letters, careful letters to Mary, protesting your innocence, asking for an audience, begging to be allowed to prove your loyalty. Most go unanswered. Gradually, slowly, news filters in. Wyatt's rebellion failed completely. He's been executed, along with Jane Grey and her young husband. The threat to Mary's throne is over, but you're still a prisoner, because here's the thing Mary understands. Even if the current rebellion failed, you'll always be a potential rallying point for future ones. As long as you're alive, as long as you're Protestant, as long as you represent an alternative to her rule, you're dangerous. The smart thing would be to have you quietly executed, charge you with treason based on some trumped-up evidence, problem solved. But Mary can't quite bring herself to do it. You're her sister, her father's daughter, her last real family. And despite everything, despite the religious differences and the political complications, there's still some affection there, so you remain in limbo, not free, not dead, just suspended. During your months at Woodstock, you learn patience like you never knew before, real patience, the kind that comes from having absolutely no control over your situation. You can't charm your way out, can't negotiate, can't do anything but wait and hope Mary's conscience keeps you alive. You also learn to be very, very careful. Every word you speak is reported. Every letter you write is read. Every person you meet might be a spy. You develop a habit of saying nothing important, revealing nothing useful, keeping your real thoughts locked away behind a pleasant, harmless facade. It's exhausting, like wearing a mask that never comes off. In April 1555, after more than a year of imprisonment, Mary finally summons you back to court, not pardoned, not forgiven, but no longer actively suspected of treason. You return to a court that's changed. Philip of Spain is now king, though the English barely tolerate him. Mary is desperate to have a child, an heir that would secure the Catholic succession. The religious persecutions have begun in earnest. People are being burned alive for their faith, Protestants who refuse to convert, scholars who translated the Bible into English, ordinary people who won't accept papal authority. The smoke from Smithfield, where many of the executions take place, hangs over London like a constant reminder of the stakes. You attend court functions, smile at the right moments, express appropriate devotion to the Queen and King, but inside, you're cataloguing everything, learning who can be trusted, who supports what, how to navigate this dangerous new world. Mary treats you with wary politeness. She needs you visible, needs to show that the royal family is united behind her rule, but she also watches you constantly for signs of disloyalty. You give her none. When Mary thinks she's pregnant, finally pregnant after months of hoping, you're among the first to congratulate her. You help plan celebrations, express joy at the prospect of a Catholic heir. When it becomes clear she's not actually pregnant, just experiencing a phantom pregnancy brought on by desperate wishful thinking, you're tactfully sympathetic. These things happen. God's will is mysterious. Perhaps next time. You become very good at saying nothing while appearing to say everything. Mary's health starts declining. The stress of ruling, the disappointment of her marriage, the failure to produce an heir, it's all wearing on her. She's in her 40s now, getting older, in a world where 40 is practically elderly. And slowly, quietly, people start looking at you again, not as a threat this time, but as a future. The next queen, the Protestant alternative who's proven she can be diplomatic, who's survived imprisonment and suspicion, who's learned patience and caution. You don't encourage this. Don't discourage it either. You just exist. Visible but not threatening. Available but not eager. On November 17th, 1558, Mary dies. No dramatic deathbed scene, no final words of wisdom, just the quiet end of a woman who tried to restore what she thought was right and failed. You're at Hatfield House when the news arrives, the same Hatfield where you grew up, where you learned Latin and Greek, where you pretended to be sick during Jane Grey's brief reign. The courtiers arrive within hours, kneeling, proclaiming you queen. Elizabeth I, by the grace of God, Queen of England and Ireland. You're 25 years old. You've survived your mother's execution, your father's rejection, imprisonment in the Tower, years of religious persecution, suspicion of treason, and the constant threat of death. Now you're queen of a country that's broke, religiously divided, surrounded by enemies, and expecting you to fix everything. Good news? You're finally in charge of your own destiny. Bad news? Everyone's watching to see if you'll be able to handle it, but as you kneel under an oak tree in the gardens at Hatfield, as the November wind cuts through your cloak and the courtiers wait for your first words as Queen, you feel something you haven't felt in years: hope. You've been preparing for this moment your entire life, through education, through survival, through learning to navigate the deadliest court in Europe without losing your head. Literally, tomorrow you'll ride to London, take possession of your kingdom, start the business of ruling. Tonight, you're still just Elizabeth, the bastard princess who learned 6 languages, who survived the tower, who's about to become the most powerful woman in Europe. Sleep well, Your Majesty. The crown is heavier than you expected. You're sitting in Westminster Abbey on January 15th, 1559, and the weight of it, well, it's not just the gold and jewels pressing down on your skull. It's the weight of expectation, of responsibility, of a kingdom that's been through hell and is looking to you to somehow fix everything. The abbey smells like incense and centuries of prayers, stone walls that have witnessed the crowning of kings since William the Conqueror. The December air is bitter cold, your breath visible in little puffs as you speak the ancient words that bind you to England forever. Around you, 2,000 of the most important people in the country are watching. Nobles, bishops, foreign ambassadors, all trying to figure out what kind of queen you're going to be. Are you your father's daughter, ruthless and decisive, your brother's sister, scholarly and Protestant, or something entirely new? You're wearing white, the colour of purity, because you're unmarried. The Virgin Queen, though you haven't started calling yourself that yet. Your red hair is elaborately styled beneath the crown, your hands steady as you hold the sceptre and orb that symbolise your power. But inside, you're terrified. Not of being queen. You've been preparing for this your whole life, but of the mountain of problems waiting for you outside these abbey walls. England is broke. The treasury is empty after Mary's expensive religious campaigns. The country is split between Catholics and Protestants, each side suspicious of the other. Scotland is allied with France, which means you've got potential enemies on your northern border. Spain controls the seas. Ireland is restless. Oh, and everyone wants to know who you're going to marry. Everyone. Before your coronation feast is even over, before you've had time to figure out where your private chambers are in the sprawling maze of Whitehall Palace, the marriage proposals start arriving. From kings, princes, dukes, archdukes, basically every eligible royal male in Europe. Because here's the thing, in 1559, the idea of an unmarried queen ruling alone is, well, it's unthinkable. Women aren't supposed to rule. They're supposed to marry men who rule. The fact that you're queen at all is seen as a temporary situation that needs to be fixed as soon as possible. Your advisors have lists, actual lists of potential husbands, with detailed analyses of the political benefits of each match. They spread these out on tables in council meetings like they're planning a military campaign. Philip of Spain, your dead sister's widower, who's offering to marry you and bring England back into the Catholic fold. Eric of Sweden, young, Protestant, and comes with a nice navy. The Archduke Charles of Austria, another Catholic option, but less politically complicated than Philip. You listen to all these proposals with a serene expression that reveals nothing. You ask thoughtful questions about dowries and treaty obligations. You appear to consider each option seriously. But here's what you're really thinking. Marriage means sharing power. It means your husband becomes king, not just king consort, but actual king with authority over you. It means your body belongs to him, for producing heirs and for whatever else he wants. It means England's interests become secondary to his family's interests, and you've worked too hard to get here to hand it all over to some man you barely know. Still, You can't just say no to everyone. That would be political suicide. Instead, you perfect the art of maybe. Maybe you'll marry Philip if he meets certain conditions. Maybe the Archduke Charles would be suitable if you could meet him first. Maybe, maybe, maybe. You become the Queen of Maybe. But there's one man who doesn't need to send formal proposals through ambassadors. One man who's been by your side since childhood, who has access to you that other suitors can only dream of. Robert Dudley, Sweet Robin, Your Eyes, the master of the horse who's never more than a few feet away from you during public appearances. Tall, handsome, charming, and absolutely inappropriate as a husband for the Queen of England. He's not royal. Not even close. His father was the Duke of Northumberland, the man who tried to put Jane Grey on the throne and got executed for treason. His family's reputation is complicated. Also, he's already married. But God, when he looks at you, when he leans close to whisper something in your ear during court ceremonies, when his hand brushes yours as he helps you mount your horse, the rest of the world just disappears. You've known him since you were children, played together, studied together, survived your father's court together. He was imprisoned in the Tower at the same time you were, in a different part for different reasons, but you both know what those stone walls feel like. There's something between you, has been for years, a connection that goes deeper than politics or protocol. When you're with Robert, you're not the Queen, you're just Elizabeth, the girl who learned Latin to impress her tutors, who survived her mother's execution and her sister's suspicions, who laughs at his jokes and trusts him with secrets she tells no one else. Your Privy Council hates him. William Cecil, your chief advisor, a brilliant, cautious man who's devoted his life to serving the Tudor monarchy, watches Robert with barely concealed suspicion. Cecil knows that Robert wants to be king, not just the Queen's husband, but actual king. And Cecil knows that would be a disaster for England. The foreign ambassadors hate him too. They report back to their masters that the Queen of England is besotted with an unsuitable Englishman, that she's making decisions based on her heart instead of her head, that she's weak and easily manipulated. They're wrong about the last part. You're not weak, not easily manipulated, but they're right that Robert affects you in ways that other men don't. You give him Kenilworth Castle, one of the most magnificent estates in England, a royal palace that you're essentially gifting to a man who's not your husband. The gesture raises eyebrows, creates gossip, sends every foreign court into fits of speculation about what exactly is going on between you two. In September 1560, Robert's wife, Amy, dies. She falls down the stairs at Cumnor Place, her family's estate, and breaks her neck. It's a tragic accident, the kind of thing that happens when you're dealing with steep stone steps and long, heavy dresses, except nobody believes it's an accident. The rumours start immediately. Robert murdered his wife so he could marry the Queen, had her pushed down the stairs, paid servants to arrange the accident. The gossip spreads through London, through the countryside, across Europe like wildfire. You're devastated, not just because Amy is dead, though that's terrible enough, but because you know what this means for you and Robert. Any chance you might have had of marrying him, and there was a chance, however small, has just evaporated. You can't marry a man who's suspected of murdering his wife to get to you. Even if you believe he's innocent, which you do, the scandal would destroy your reign before it really began. No foreign power would take you seriously. No English subject would respect you. You'd be seen as the queen who sacrificed her kingdom for her passions. So, you send Robert away from court, temporarily, just until the investigation into Amy's death is complete, until the gossip dies down, until it's safe for him to return. The investigation clears him of any wrongdoing. The coroner's jury rules Amy's death accidental. But the damage is done. The shadow of suspicion will follow Robert for the rest of his life. When he returns to court, things are different between you. Still close, still affectionate, but there's a distance now, a careful space that you maintain for both your sakes. You can't afford to be seen as a woman ruled by her emotions. Parliament keeps pressuring you about marriage, not just suggesting it, demanding it. They present formal petitions asking, no, begging, you to choose a husband and produce an heir. The succession is uncertain. If you die childless, if something happens to you, the kingdom could descend into civil war. You listen to these petitions with patience that you don't feel. You give gracious responses about considering your duty to the realm, about trusting in God's providence, about hoping to marry when the time is right. But privately, you're furious. How dare they treat you like a prize cow that needs to be bred? How dare they assume you can't rule effectively without a man beside you? You channel that fury into proving them wrong. You establish a religious settlement that threads the needle between Catholic and Protestant extremes. England will be Protestant, but not aggressively so. Catholics who conform outwardly won't be persecuted for their private beliefs. The Church will be English, but not revolutionary. It's a compromise that satisfies no one completely, which makes it brilliant politics. You rebuild the navy. England is an island. Your security depends on controlling the seas. You invest in new ships, new technologies, new training methods. You encourage privateers like Francis Drake to raid Spanish treasure ships, building England's wealth while weakening your enemies. You surround yourself with brilliant advisors and then actually listen to them. William Cecil becomes your right hand, the steady, careful voice of reason. Francis Walsingham develops an intelligence network that rivals any in Europe. You learn to balance competing interests, to play different factions against each other, to be decisive when you need to be and patient when that serves you better. You also learn to use your unmarried status as a weapon. Every time England needs an alliance, you dangle the possibility of marriage. Need to keep Spain from attacking? Consider marrying Philip. Want France to stay neutral? Flirt with the Duke of Anjou? Need to secure Protestant support? Let rumours spread about Robert Dudley. Your virginity becomes one of your most powerful diplomatic tools. Meanwhile, a new threat is emerging from the north. Mary, Queen of Scots, your cousin, your rival, your potential successor, and a woman whose very existence complicates your life in ways you're still figuring out. Mary has spent most of her life in France, married to the French king's son, raised in the sophisticated French court. She's beautiful, accomplished, charming, and Catholic. She's also got a legitimate claim to the English throne, one that many Catholics consider stronger than yours. When her young husband dies and she returns to Scotland in 1561, you watch from a distance. Mary is only 19, young and inexperienced in Scottish politics. Scotland is controlled by Protestant lords who don't trust their Catholic queen. It's a volatile situation. You try diplomacy first. Suggest that Mary marry Robert Dudley, your Robert, in a scheme that would solve multiple problems at once. Mary would get a Protestant husband acceptable to her lords. Robert would get a crown, just not yours, and you'd have a friendly neighbour to the north instead of a potential enemy. It's a brilliant solution that everyone hates. Mary is insulted by the suggestion that she marry your cast-off favourite. Robert is hurt that you're trying to ship him off to Scotland. Your council thinks you're being too clever by half, so that plan dies quietly. Mary marries her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, instead. He's young, handsome, Catholic, and an absolute disaster. Weak, vain, jealous, and prone to violent rages. Within months, Mary realises she's made a terrible mistake. Darnley becomes obsessed with the idea that Mary is having an affair with her secretary, David Rizzio. It's probably not true, but Darnley doesn't care about truth. He cares about his wounded pride. In March 1566, Darnley and a group of Scottish lords drag Rizzio from Mary's private chambers and stab him to death. 56 wounds in front of Mary, who's 6 months pregnant at the time. The news reaches you at Greenwich Palace on a warm spring evening. You're in your private chambers, reading dispatches by candlelight. When Cecil arrives with the report, you read it twice, the words not quite making sense the first time. Your cousin, the Queen of Scots, witnessed her secretary's brutal murder at the hands of her own husband, while pregnant, in her private rooms, where she should have been safe. You set the letter down carefully, your hands not quite steady, because if it can happen to Mary, it can happen to you. Royal blood doesn't protect you from the violence of men who feel entitled to control you. This is why you don't marry, why you can't trust your safety, your crown, your very life to any man, because even marriage, even love, can turn deadly when power is involved. You sleep badly that night, wake to rain against your windows and the sound of servants moving quietly through the corridors. Your chambers smell like beeswax and rosewater, familiar scents that usually comfort you, but today they just remind you how isolated you are, how every decision you make affects not just you, but an entire kingdom, how the wrong choice, the wrong marriage, the wrong trust could destroy everything you've worked to build. You're 28 years old. You've been queen for 3 years. You've survived assassination plots, marriage pressure, political crises, and constant scrutiny of every word you speak and every step you take. You've learned to be careful, to trust slowly, to keep your own counsel when everyone else wants to speak for you. Tomorrow there will be more marriage proposals to consider, more threats from abroad to manage, more domestic problems to solve. Scotland is a mess. Spain is building ships. France is watching for weakness. Your treasury is still strained. Parliament still thinks you need a husband to be a proper queen. But tonight, you're warm and safe in your royal bed, silk sheets that smell like lavender, a fire crackling in the hearth, tapestries on the walls that muffle the sound of wind and rain. You're the most powerful woman in Europe. You're the Virgin Queen who's figured out how to rule alone. You're Elizabeth, and you're exactly where you need to be, even if the rest of the world doesn't understand that yet. You're walking in the gardens at Greenwich when the messenger arrives. It's February 10th, 1567, a crisp morning with frost still clinging to the bare branches of the apple trees. Your breath makes small clouds in the cold air as you pause to read the dispatch that will change everything. Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, Mary Queen of Scots' useless husband, is dead. Murdered, blown up in a house outside Edinburgh in the most spectacular fashion imaginable, gunpowder enough to level the building and shake windows for miles around. But here's the weird part. Darnley's body was found in the garden, unmarked, still in his nightgown, like he was strangled first. Then the house was destroyed to cover it up. You hand the letter back to your secretary and continue walking. Your footsteps crunch on the gravel path, steady, measured, while your mind races through the implications. Because you know, everyone knows, who's behind this. James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, Mary's new favourite, the man who's been whispering in her ear ever since Rizzio's murder. Strong, ambitious, ruthless, and apparently very good at making inconvenient husbands disappear. Within 3 months, Mary marries Bothwell, the man who almost certainly killed her previous husband. The scandal rocks Europe like a physical blow. Your cousin has just destroyed her own reign. The Scottish lords rebel immediately. They're Protestant, they hate Bothwell, and they're horrified by their queen's behaviour. They raise an army, march on Mary and Bothwell, and defeat them at the Battle of Carberry Hill without even fighting. Bothwell flees to Denmark. Mary is captured, imprisoned, forced to abdicate in favour of her infant son James, her own son, who's barely a year old. And then, on May 2nd, 1568, Mary escapes. She flees south, across the border into England, and throws herself on your mercy. Your cousin, your rival, your biggest political headache is now your uninvited guest. You're at Whitehall when she arrives, reviewing financial reports in your private study. The room smells like ink and parchment. the familiar scent of paperwork that never seems to end. Candles flicker in their sconces as evening falls over London. Cecil enters without ceremony, his face grim. "Your Majesty, we have a problem. Mary Queen of Scots is at Carlisle Castle, asking for sanctuary, asking for help to regain her throne, asking you to do something, anything, about the mess she's made of her life. You set down your quill and rub your temples, because this is exactly what you didn't need. If you help Mary, you're interfering in Scottish politics and setting a precedent that foreign queens can expect English military support when they make catastrophic decisions. If you refuse to help her, you're abandoning a fellow queen, a fellow woman, a member of your own family. But if you send her back to Scotland, she'll probably be executed. The Scottish lords don't want her back. They're happy with baby James and his Protestant regents. And if you let her go to France, she'll spend the rest of her life plotting to reclaim not just Scotland, but England too, because in Mary's mind, in Catholic Europe's mind, she's the rightful Queen of England. You're just the bastard usurper keeping her from her inheritance. So you do the only thing you can do. You make Mary your guest, your very, very closely watched guest. She's moved to a series of comfortable prisons, manor houses really, in the English countryside. Bolton Castle, Sheffield Castle, Chatsworth House, beautiful places with gardens and libraries and all the comforts a former queen could want, except freedom. Mary is 35 years old when she arrives in England. Tall, striking, with auburn hair and the kind of dramatic beauty that makes men write poetry. She's been queen since she was 6 days old, raised in the French court, accustomed to luxury and deference and getting her own way. Now she's a prisoner, politely treated, respectfully guarded, but a prisoner nonetheless. And she's going to be your problem for the next 19 years. Because Mary doesn't accept her situation quietly. She plots, constantly. Letters smuggled out in wine barrels, messages hidden in book bindings, coded communications with Catholic supporters across Europe. She becomes the centre of every conspiracy against your throne. The first serious plot comes in 1569. The Northern Earls, Catholic nobles who've never really accepted your religious settlement, rise in rebellion. Their plan is to rescue Mary, marry her to Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, and put them both on the throne as joint rulers. You crush the rebellion without breaking a sweat. Your spymaster Francis Walsingham, a thin, intense man with eyes like a hawk, has agents everywhere. He knows about the plot almost before the plotters do. Norfolk ends up in the Tower. The Northern Earls flee to Scotland. Their followers are executed, hanged in marketplace squares as examples to anyone else who might think rebellion is a good idea. Mary claims she knew nothing about any of it. Absolutely nothing. She's shocked that anyone would use her name for such purposes. You don't believe her for a second. The problem is that as long as Mary lives, she'll always be a focus for Catholic opposition. Every discontented noble, every foreign power, every person who thinks you're illegitimate or heretical or just doesn't like your policies can rally around her as an alternative. Your advisors start suggesting carefully that maybe it would be better if Mary had an accident. Prison is dangerous. People fall downstairs, catch fevers, choke on their food. These things happen. You refuse, absolutely refuse. You're not going to become the kind of ruler who murders inconvenient relatives. That's not who you are. It's not who you want to be, and it's not how you want to be remembered. But God, she makes it difficult. In 1570, Pope Pius V issues a papal bull declaring you excommunicated, stripped of your throne, no longer the rightful Queen of England. He encourages your Catholic subjects to disobey you, to work for your overthrow, to treat you as a usurper who can be lawfully removed. It's essentially a death warrant issued by the head of the Catholic Church. The bull doesn't have much practical effect. Most of your Catholic subjects ignore it, but it makes every conspiracy against you feel divinely sanctioned. It turns political opposition into religious duty. More plots follow. The Ridolfi plot in 1571. Another scheme to marry Mary to Norfolk and put them on the throne. Again, Walsingham's spies uncover it. Again, Norfolk ends up in the Tower. This time, you let Parliament execute him because you can forgive one act of treason, but not two. Meanwhile, your court becomes more magnificent with each passing year. You've been queen for over a decade now. You've survived multiple assassination attempts. You've proven you can rule alone. The initial skepticism about an unmarried queen has faded into grudging respect. Your progresses through the countryside become legendary spectacles. Every summer you load up hundreds of courtiers and servants and travel from estate to estate, letting your subjects see their queen, showing the flag in remote areas, and bankrupting your hosts with the expense of entertaining you properly. But it's worth it. Politics in the 16th century is personal. People need to see you, hear you speak, watch you handle challenges with grace and intelligence. You become a symbol as much as a ruler. Gloriana, the Virgin Queen who belongs to England rather than to any man. Your courtiers compete frantically for your attention. They write poetry about your beauty, your wisdom, your divine right to rule. They wear your colours, adopt your badges, organise elaborate entertainments in your honour. Robert Dudley, still your sweet Robin after all these years, creates the most spectacular entertainment of all. In 1575, he invites you to Kenilworth Castle, the castle you gave him, for a 3-week celebration that costs him a fortune. Fireworks every night, masks and plays, musical performances, elaborate meals served on gold plates, a water pageant with actors dressed as sea gods floating on the lake, bears dancing, men dressed as savages leaping from bushes to recite poetry in your honour. It's Dudley's last attempt to win you as a wife. One final desperate courtship displayed through wealth and artistry and devotion. You enjoy every moment, dance until midnight, laugh at the performances, accept gifts of jewellery and books and exotic animals, but when the mask that's meant to end with a marriage proposal gets rained out, you don't wait for better weather. You leave, because you've made your choice years ago, and it wasn't Robert. A few years later, Robert marries Lettice Knollys, your cousin, a gorgeous redhead with a fiery temper and ambitious plans. The wedding is secret, but secrets don't stay secret long at court. When you find out, you're furious. Not just because Robert married without your permission, though that's part of it, but because he chose someone from your own family, someone who'll always be at court, someone you'll have to see and acknowledge and pretend to like. You ban Lettice from court. For years, Robert you keep because you need him, because you've always needed him, but things are different now, cooler, more formal. By the 1580s, new threats are emerging. Philip of Spain, who's been patient for decades, is finally losing his temper with England. Your privateers keep raiding his treasure ships. Your support for Protestant rebels in the Netherlands is costing him money and soldiers. Your refusal to return to Catholicism is encouraging other countries to resist Spanish influence. Philip starts building ships, lots of ships, more ships than anyone has ever assembled in one place. He calls it the Armada, and its purpose is simple: invade England, remove you from the throne, restore Catholicism. Walsingham's spies bring reports of the preparations, shipyards working day and night, supplies being gathered, soldiers being recruited, maps of the English coast being studied. In 1586, everything comes to a head. Anthony Babington, a young Catholic gentleman with more enthusiasm than sense, organises the most serious plot yet against your life. The plan is to assassinate you, rescue Mary from her comfortable prison, and put her on the throne with Spanish military support. This time, Walsingham doesn't just uncover the plot, he orchestrates it. His double agents encourage Babington, provide him with resources, help him recruit conspirators, all while gathering evidence of Mary's direct involvement, because Mary, finally, definitively puts her agreement to your assassination in writing. The coded letter is smuggled out of her prison hidden in a beer barrel. Walsingham intercepts it, decodes it, and finally has proof that Mary isn't just a passive focus for rebellion. She's an active participant in treason. In your private chamber at Greenwich, surrounded by portraits of your ancestors and the scent of winter roses, Cecil presents you with the evidence, Mary's letter, decoded, spelling out her agreement to Babington's plan to kill you. Your hands shake as you read it, not from fear, but from exhaustion. 19 years of this, 19 years of plots and conspiracies and attempts on your life, all swirling around your cousin who claims to be innocent while writing letters authorizing your murder. Parliament demands Mary's execution. Your people demand it. Your advisors demand it. After 19 years of showing mercy, of taking the moral high ground, of refusing to become a killer of queens, everyone wants you to finally end this. The trial is a formality. Mary is guilty. The evidence is overwhelming. The sentence is death. But signing the warrant, actually putting your name to a document that will result in another queen's execution, that's the hardest thing you've ever done. You delay for months, find excuses, hope for alternatives, because once you cross this line, once you execute Mary, there's no going back. You'll be the queen who killed her cousin, the ruler who beheaded a fellow monarch. But Mary's letter keeps haunting you, your assassination, planned in detail, approved in writing. How many more plots will there be if she lives? How many more attempts on your life? Finally, reluctantly, with a heavy heart and shaking hands, you sign the death warrant. Mary Queen of Scots is executed at Fotheringhay Castle on February 8, 1587. She dies bravely, wearing red, the colour of Catholic martyrdom. Her final words are prayers in Latin, commending her soul to God. When news of the execution reaches Philip of Spain, he stops building ships and starts launching them. The Armada is coming, 130 ships carrying 30,000 men, the largest invasion force ever assembled against England. Philip's response to 19 years of English defiance and his revenge for Mary's death. You're 54 years old, you've been queen for almost 30 years, you've survived your mother's execution, your father's rejection, imprisonment in the Tower, religious persecution, countless marriage proposals, endless assassination plots, and the moral anguish of executing your own cousin. Now you face the greatest test of your reign. The mightiest empire in the world is coming to destroy you, to remove you from the throne, to undo everything you've built. But you're Elizabeth Tudor, you're the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. You're the queen who learned to rule alone, who turned her weaknesses into strengths, who built a navy and a nation that can stand against any enemy. Tomorrow, Spanish ships will appear on the horizon, but tonight, you're safe in your royal chambers, planning your defence, trusting in your captains and your people and your God. The greatest battle of your life is about to begin. The beacons start lighting on July 19th, 1588, one by one, across the hills of Cornwall and Devon, chains of fire stretching north toward London, each flame carrying the same message. They're here. The Spanish are here. You're at Whitehall Palace when the news arrives. Standing in your private study, maps of the English Channel spread across your table when a mud-splattered messenger falls to his knees with the words that change everything. Your Majesty, the Armada has been sighted off the Lizard. The Spanish Armada, 130 ships arranged in a massive crescent formation, stretching 7 miles across the horizon, 30,000 soldiers and sailors, 1,500 guns, years of preparation, and the combined might of the Spanish Empire sailing toward your shores. Philip's invincible Armada, come to remove you from your throne and restore England to the Catholic faith. You set down the dispatches you've been reading, your hands steady despite the enormity of what's happening, because this is it. This is the moment everything has been building toward. 30 years of defying Spain, of supporting Protestant rebels, of allowing your privateers to raid treasure ships, of executing Mary Queen of Scots. The bill has come due. Your admirals are ready. Charles Howard, Lord Admiral of England, commanding from his flagship Ark Royal, Francis Drake in revenge, the man who singed the King of Spain's beard with his raid on Cadiz. John Hawkins, Martin Frobisher, seasoned captains who've spent their careers fighting Spanish ships. Your navy isn't as big as theirs, but it's faster, more manoeuvrable, built for the rough waters of the English Channel rather than the calm seas of the Mediterranean. Your gun crews have been practicing, your supplies are ready, your strategy is simple. Stay out of range of their massive guns. Use your speed advantage. Hit them from a distance and run before they can retaliate. Don't let them land. Because that's Philip's plan. Sail up the Channel, link up with the Duke of Parma's army waiting in the Netherlands, ferry 30,000 Spanish veterans across to England, and march on London. Simple, straightforward, almost certain to work if they can get their troops ashore. Your job is to make sure that never happens. The first skirmishes begin immediately. Your ships harass the Spanish formation, darting in to fire broadsides before retreating beyond range. The Spanish maintain their discipline, their formation, their steady progress up the Channel. For 5 days, this deadly dance continues. Your captains chipping away at the edges of the armada, sinking a few ships, damaging many more, but unable to break the formation or stop their advance. The Spanish anchor off Calais on August 6th, so close to Parma's army, so close to success. Drake has an idea. Fire ships, old vessels packed with gunpowder and tar, set ablaze and sent drifting into the crowded Spanish anchorage in the middle of the night. Not to sink ships, but to panic them. Force them to cut their anchor cables and flee into the darkness. It works perfectly. The Spanish fleet scatters in chaos, ships colliding in the dark, anchor cables cut in desperation, the tight formation that protected them for a week, broken apart by fear of floating bombs. At dawn on August 8th, your fleet attacks the scattered Spanish ships off Gravelines. This time, there's no formation to protect them, no unified response. Just individual ships fighting for their lives against your faster, more manoeuvrable vessels. The English guns speak with thunder that echoes across the Channel. Smoke drifts over the water like fog. Spanish ships, massive galleons that looked invincible just days ago, are battered into floating wreckage. The Spanish commander, the Duke of Medina Sidonia, makes the only decision he can: retreat. Sail north around Scotland and Ireland. Try to reach Spain with whatever ships survive. The Armada, Philip's great enterprise, his answer to decades of English defiance, limps away from the English coast like a wounded animal. But you don't know the outcome yet, not while the battle is raging, not while Spanish soldiers might still land on English beaches. So you do something unprecedented. Something that will echo through history books for centuries. You go to Tilbury, the army camp where 20,000 English soldiers are waiting, just in case the Spanish break through your naval defences, where your people, your subjects, your soldiers need to see their queen. You arrive on August 9th wearing a silver breastplate over a white velvet dress. A ridiculous combination that shouldn't work but somehow does. Armour that proclaims you're ready to fight. Feminine dress that reminds everyone you're a woman doing what queens aren't supposed to do. The soldiers cheer when they see you, really cheer, not the polite applause of courtiers, but the raw enthusiasm of men who are genuinely happy to see their monarch sharing their risks. You ride among them on a white horse, talking to captains, thanking sergeants, letting common soldiers see that their queen isn't hiding in some palace while they face danger, and then you give the speech. Standing before thousands of armed men, your voice carrying across the camp in the summer air, you speak words that will be remembered as long as English is spoken. My loving people, I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king. And of a king of England too. The soldiers roar approval. These men who are prepared to die for you, now certain they're serving a queen worth dying for. I think foul scorn that any prince in Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm. More cheers, because you're not just promising to defend England, you're taking it personally. This isn't just politics, it's an insult to your honour, an attack on your family. The speech becomes legendary, copied in letters, repeated in taverns, passed down through generations. The moment when the Virgin Queen became Gloriana, the warrior queen who stood with her people against the greatest empire in the world. But you don't know that yet. Right now, you're just a 54-year-old woman trying to inspire an army, hoping your navy has done its job, praying that England will survive the next few days. The news comes gradually. Spanish ships, scattered and damaged, struggling around the Scottish coast, storms battering what's left of the fleet, ships wrecked on Irish beaches, survivors struggling ashore only to be killed by hostile locals. Of the 130 ships that left Spain, only about 60 make it home. 15,000 men dead. The greatest naval disaster in Spanish history. England is saved. The celebrations last for weeks, bonfires on every hill, church services giving thanks to God for delivering England from invasion, medals struck showing you as Deborah, the biblical judge who led Israel to victory. But the victory comes with a price you didn't expect. Robert Dudley, your sweet Robin, your oldest friend, dies just days after the Armada's defeat, as if he held on just long enough to see England safe, then let himself go. You find his last letter to you among his papers, written as he lay dying, calling you his most dear sweet queen one final time, asking you to remember him kindly. You lock yourself in your private chambers for days, won't see anyone, won't eat, won't discuss business. Your courtiers whisper that the queen has finally broken, that the strain of ruling alone for 30 years has finally proved too much. But you emerge, because England needs you, because there's still work to do. Philip doesn't give up. He builds more ships, launches more armadas, smaller ones in 1596 and 1597. Your navy defeats them all. Your captains, inspired by their victory over the Great Armada, become legends. Drake, Hawkins, Raleigh, names that Spanish sailors learn to fear. England becomes a naval power. Your privateers range across the world's oceans, raiding Spanish settlements, bringing home treasure, establishing trade routes, the foundation of what will someday become a global empire. Your court becomes a centre of learning and art. William Shakespeare writes plays that will outlive kingdoms. Edmund Spenser composes epic poetry in your honour. Musicians, painters, scholars all flourish under your patronage. You never marry, never have children, remain the Virgin Queen until the end, belonging to England rather than to any man. But succession becomes an urgent question as you age. You're in your 60s, then your 70s, ruling longer than anyone expected. Parliament grows nervous about what happens when you die. You refuse to name an heir. Partly because you don't want to encourage plots against you, partly because admitting you'll die someday feels like giving up power before you have to. But privately, secretly, you've made your choice. James of Scotland, Mary Queen of Scots' son, raised Protestant, already a king, the most logical candidate to unite England and Scotland under one crown. James has been writing to you for years, careful letters that acknowledge your authority while gently reminding you that he exists, that he's ready, that he can provide the stability England needs when you're gone. You don't answer most of his letters. Don't encourage him, don't make any promises, but you don't discourage him either. Your final years are bittersweet. You're Gloriana now, the greatest queen in English history, the woman who defeated Spain and ushered in a golden age. Painters depict you with symbols of eternal youth, poets write of your immortal glory, courtiers compete to praise your timeless beauty. But you know better. You see yourself in mirrors, feel the aches in your joints, notice how stairs are getting harder to climb. In March 1603, you fall ill, not dramatically, just a gradual weakening, a reluctance to eat, a tendency to sit quietly instead of pacing restlessly as you've done your entire life. Your courtiers beg you to go to bed. You refuse. Queens don't take to their beds unless they're ready to die. And you're not ready. You spend your final days in a chair, surrounded by cushions, occasionally speaking to your ladies-in-waiting, mostly just resting. On March 24th, 1603, just before 3 a.m, you die quietly. No dramatic last words, no deathbed speeches, just the peaceful end of a remarkable life. You've reigned for 44 years, longer than your father, longer than any English monarch in centuries, long enough to transform a bankrupt, divided, threatened country into a confident, prosperous, powerful nation. James of Scotland becomes James I of England, uniting the two kingdoms as you'd planned. The Tudor dynasty ends with you, but the England you created endures. Shakespeare will write plays about kings and queens, but he lived through the reign of the greatest monarch England has ever known. The Virgin Queen who proved that a woman could rule alone, could lead armies, could defeat empires, could create a golden age that people will remember for centuries. Your story becomes legend, the bastard princess who survived everything Tudor England could throw at her, who turned her weaknesses into strengths, who made her virgin status a source of power rather than shame, who faced down the Spanish Armada with a speech that still gives people chills. But tonight, as you listen to this story from whatever comfortable bed you're lying in, remember that Elizabeth was human too, a woman who felt fear and loneliness and doubt, who made hard choices with incomplete information, who sometimes lay awake wondering if she was doing the right thing. She succeeded not because she was perfect, but because she was persistent, because she learned from her mistakes, because she surrounded herself with good people and actually listened to them, because she put England's interests ahead of her own, even when that meant staying unmarried, even when that meant executing her cousin, even when that meant facing the greatest invasion force in European history. Elizabeth Tudor died 400 years ago, but her example lives on, the proof that women can lead, that outsiders can succeed, that being different isn't a weakness, that sometimes the most unlikely person becomes exactly what the world needs. So sleep well, knowing that one determined woman changed the course of history, that courage and intelligence and sheer stubborn persistence can overcome almost any obstacle, that Elizabeth, the bastard princess who became Gloriana, would be proud to know that people still remember her story. Sweet dreams, and remember, you have the heart and stomach of a king too.